The town of Ashbourne had always carried with it a whisper of unease. It wasn't the kind of place you saw in postcards or travel brochures. Its beauty was not in grand cathedrals or bustling streets, but in the quiet, shadow-draped corners where time seemed reluctant to move forward. Old stone fences lined the roads, ivy crept over decaying cottages, and the mist clung to the hills as though it never wanted to leave. And then, there was the abandoned house. Everyone in Ashbourne knew it. Children dared each other to step onto its sagging porch, teenagers broke in on stormy nights to prove their courage, and old folks whispered prayers when they passed by. The house stood on the edge of town, swallowed by wild overgrowth, its roof caved in at places and windows like hollowed eyes staring into nothing. For most, it was just a relic of the past, rotting wood and forgotten memories. For Alina, however, it was something else entirely. She had avoided it for years, though every time she walked by, her chest tightened and her gaze drifted toward it, unbidden. There was a secret in those walls, one tied to her family, one no one had ever explained. Her mother, Amelia, had disappeared when Alina was just 10. One morning, Amelia had left the house humming a lullaby, promising to return with bread from the market. But she never came back. The police searched, neighbors speculated, and relatives clucked their tongues with pity, but no trace was found. Over the years, the trail went cold, leaving Alina with nothing but her mother's fatting perfume in the hallway and an emptiness that gnawed at her. Now at 24, Alina had learned to bury the ache beneath layers of routine. She worked at the local bookstore, kept her head low, and spoke little of the past. But the abandoned house, that house, refused to be forgotten. It began subtly, a dream recurring over weeks where she would hear her mother's voice calling her name, soft, melodic, the exact way she remembered it. The voice always came from the old house. When she awoke, her sheets clung damp with sweat and her heart raced as though she'd run a mile. Then came the sound in waking life. At first she thought it was the wind or the creaking of shutters, but one evening as she walked home, the breeze carried a familiar murmur. Alina, the voice was faint, but it struck her like lightning. She froze, clutching her chest, staring at the silhouette of the abandoned house in the distance. Her mother's voice. She knew it as surely as she knew her own. That night Alina couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every lullaby, every whispered "I love you," every memory of her mother's hand brushing through her hair. By dawn, she had made a decision she never thought she would. She would go inside. The morning sky was gray, heavy with unfallen rain, as Alina stood before the gate. Rust had eaten away most of its iron bars, and weeds tangled through the gaps. The air smelled of earth and mold, sharp and damp. Her legs trembled, but something stronger than fear pushed her forward, an aching pull that had lived in her since childhood. She forced the gate open with a screech that echoed across the empty street. The path to the house was overgrown, thorns snagging at her jeans as she made her way up. Every step felt like crossing into forbidden ground. She paused at the porch, her hand hovering over the door. The wood was warped and swollen, paint peeling like dry skin. She drew in a breath, pushed, and the door groaned open with a sound that set her teeth on edge. Inside, the air was thick and cold, the kind that carried the weight of years untouched. Dust floated in shafts of pale light breaking through shattered windows. The floorboards sagged beneath her weight, moaning at her intrusion. Furniture lay toppled, broken, or buried beneath grime. The walls were stripped bare except for scraps of old wallpaper curling at the edges, stained with damp. But more than the decay, it was the silence that struck her. Not empty silence, but heavy, like the house was listening. "Alina." The voice came so suddenly, she staggered back, her heart hammering. It wasn't in her head. It wasn't a memory. It was here. Her throat closed. "Mom." Silence. Her eyes burned with tears she hadn't expected. She gripped the edge of the doorway, steadying herself. Perhaps she was losing her mind. Perhaps years of grief had finally cracked her open. But no, she had heard it, clear, just as she remembered. She stepped deeper into the house, her footsteps muffled by dust. The smell of mildew clung to her clothes, but underneath it was something faint, something achingly familiar. Lavender, her mother's favorite scent. "Mom," her voice trembled. A sound answered, a soft hum, drifting from the hallway to her left. The lullaby, the same one her mother used to sing as she tucked Elena into bed. Her chest tightened as she moved toward the sound, her hands shaking so violently she had to press them to her sides. The hallway stretched into shadow, the walls narrowing, ceiling low. Cobwebs brushed her face, and her stomach churned with dread and longing all tangled together. The hum grew louder. Halfway down the hall she saw it, an old wooden door she hadn't noticed before. Its surface was scarred with scratches, as though someone had clawed at it long ago. A chill slithered up her spine. Her hand hovered over the handle and her breath caught. She was terrified of what might be behind that door, but even more terrified of walking away. What if her mother was in there? What if all these years of silence had been leading to this? "Elena," the voice came again, soft, urgent. Her heart cracked open. She pushed the door. The room beyond was cloaked in shadow, the windows boarded up, letting in only slivers of light. Dust hung thick, disturbed only by her entry. In the center of the room stood a chair. On it lay a small music box, its lid open, a delicate ballerina spinning slowly. The lullaby floated from it, warped with age but unmistakable. Her knees nearly buckled. That was her mother's music box. The very one Amelia used to keep on her dresser, the one Elena would sneak into her room to wind just to watch the ballerina twirl. After her mother's disappearance, it had vanished along with her. Elena stumbled toward it, her fingers brushing the box. Cold, too cold. She snapped the lid shut and the music stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then, "Elena." This time the voice was not from the box. It came from behind her. Her breath hitched, her skin prickling with icy fear. Slowly, painfully slowly, she turned. The shadows shifted. There in the far corner of the room, something moved. A figure. Female. Her voice, her presence. And Elena, paralyzed, could do nothing but whisper through trembling lips. "Mom." The figure in the corner wavered, blurred by shadow. For a moment, Elena thought her eyes were playing tricks. That grief and exhaustion had conjured up the image she had longed for. But then it stepped forward slowly, carefully, as though reluctant to be seen. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The outline was unmistakable, a woman's frame, tall, with shoulders she remembered clinging to as a child. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. Every fiber of her wanted to rush forward, to collapse into an embrace she had missed for 14 years. Yet fear rooted her to the spot. "Mom," her voice cracked. The figure paused in the half-light, and then came the voice again, soft, familiar, achingly tender. "Elena." It was her, the voice was real. Elena's legs finally obeyed. She stumbled forward, tears blurring her vision. But when she was only a few feet away, the figure seemed to flicker, like a candle flame in the wind. The outline shimmered, transparent, and suddenly she could see the wall behind it. "No," Elena whispered, reaching out. Her fingers passed through cold air. The figure dissolved into mist. Her knees buckled. She fell to the dusty floor, the sobs tearing out of her like wounds that had never healed. All these years she had clung to the smallest hope, hope that her mother was alive somewhere, that she had chosen to leave, that she might return. And now here was a cruel ghost of a memory, haunting the very house everyone warned her away from. But as she wept, a new sound stirred. The music box clicked. Its lid, which she had shut, slowly creaked open again on its own. The ballerina began spinning, the lullaby warping through the silence. And beneath the melody, a whisper. "Elena, don't cry." Her head jerked up. The voice wasn't from a ghostly figure this time. It came from the very walls. She scrambled back, pressing herself against the corner, eyes wide. "What are you?" she cried into the dark. The air shimmered faintly. almost like heat waves, and words formed again, layered with emotion. "I'm here, I never left you." The words washed over her like a knife twisting in her chest. Her hands trembled. Are you really her?" Silence. "Then I was taken. I couldn't leave, not until you came." Her skin prickled, taken. Her mind reeled back to that day her mother disappeared. No evidence of foul play had ever been found, but whispers spread through town. Some said Amelia had run away with another man. Others claimed she'd drowned herself in the river. But if she'd been taken? By who? Elena whispered. The answer didn't come in words. Instead, the shadows in the room thickened, stretching unnaturally long. Shapes twisted against the walls, claw-like fingers curling. A chill flooded the air, and Elena's breath came out in clouds. And then she understood. This house wasn't abandoned. It wasn't just forgotten wood and stone. It was alive in some terrible way. Something had claimed her mother. The realization rattled her bones. She stumbled to her feet. "No, you're not my mother. You're using her voice." The lullaby faltered, slowed, then stopped. The ballerina froze mid-spin. And then came laughter, a hollow, echoing sound that seemed to crawl under her skin. "You're smarter than she was," the voice hissed, deeper now, distorted. Elena backed toward the door. "Where is she? What did you do to her?" The laughter grew. Shadows slithered across the walls, converging toward her. "She belongs to me, and now so will you." Panic exploded through her chest. She bolted from the room, slamming the door behind her. The hallway seemed longer now, stretching into impossible distance. The floor groaned, cracking under her feet as if the house itself wanted to swallow her. She ran, heart pounding, gasping for air thick with rot and cold. Behind her the voice boomed. "You can't leave, Elena. Blood calls to blood." Her mother's lullaby twisted into a chant, echoing through the halls. Elena stumbled into the entryway. The front door loomed, but as she reached for it, the wood warped and stretched, sealing shut like flesh knitting over a wound. She clawed at it, splinters embedding in her palms, but it didn't budge. "No, no, no," her scream cracked. The house shook violently, dust raining from the ceiling. Windows rattled, and from each broken pane, shadowy tendrils seeped inward, curling toward her like smoke alive with hunger. She spun around, chest heaving. "If you're real, Mom, if you're here, help me." The air stilled. For a heartbeat, silence swallowed everything. Then faintly she heard it again. Her mother's voice, not warped, not hollow, but clear. "Elena, the attic." Her gaze shot upward. A trapdoor with a dangling rope hung from the ceiling of the hallway. She had passed it earlier without noticing. Her pulse roared. With no other choice, she sprinted, leapt, and grabbed the rope. The trapdoor groaned as she yanked it down, unfolding a creaky ladder. The shadows writhed closer, hissing. She scrambled up, pulling the ladder after her just as the tendrils lashed at her heels. The attic was suffocatingly dark. Dust choked the air, and the wooden beams creaked with her every movement. She fumbled for her phone, flicking on its flashlight. The weak beam cut through the dark, illuminating piles of old trunks, broken furniture, and cobwebbed rafters. And there, in the far corner, something gleamed. A mirror, tall, cracked, its surface clouded with age, and reflected in it not Elena but her mother. Her heart stopped. Amelia stood there exactly as she remembered. Same soft eyes, same gentle smile. Tears streaked her cheeks. "Elena," her mother whispered, her voice trembling with urgency. "I've been trapped here since that day. The house feeds on pain, on blood. It took me, but it can be broken." Elena staggered closer, tears spilling freely. "How? Tell me how." Her mother pressed a hand against the glass. "The music box, it anchors the house. Break it and you break its hold, but hurry before it takes you too." The shadows hissed below, the house groaning in fury as though it heard her. Boards cracked, dust rained from the ceiling. Elena's chest heaved. She wanted nothing more than to hold her mother, to touch her hand through the glass, but she forced herself to turn. She scrambled back down the ladder, racing toward the cursed room. The house roared around her. Walls warped, floors buckled. But she didn't stop. She burst through the door, sprinted to the chair, and grabbed the music box. It wriggled in her hands as though alive, the ballerina spinning wildly now. The voice thundered, shaking the walls. "Don't you dare!" Alina screamed, lifted the box high, and smashed it against the floor. The wood splintered, the ballerina snapped off, and in an instant the house went still. The shadows shrieked, writhing violently, then dissolved into smoke that bled into the cracks of the floor. The oppressive cold lifted. The air cleared. The silence that followed was not heavy, it was empty finally. Alina collapsed to her knees, gasping. Then light. She looked up, and there in the corner of the room where the figure had once stood, her mother appeared again. But this time there was no shimmer, no distortion. Just Amelia, smiling, radiant, though faint and glowing. "You did it," her mother whispered. "You freed me." Alina's sobs racked her body. "Please don't leave me again, please." Her mother knelt, her ghostly hand brushing Alina's cheek with a warmth that lingered. "I never left you, my darling. I've been watching, waiting. You're so strong, stronger than I ever was. Live your life, be free of this place." "No," Alina cried, clutching the air, desperate. "Stay with me." Her mother's form shimmered. "I can't, but I'll always be in your heart, every song, every memory you carry me." The glow brightened, filling the room until Alina had to shield her eyes. When she looked again, the figure was gone. Only dust and silence remained. Alina sat there for what felt like hours, tears drying on her cheeks. The house was empty now, truly empty. By the time she stumbled outside, the sky had cleared. The rain clouds dissolved into pale sunlight. She looked back one last time at the broken shell of the house, its menace gone, now nothing more than rotting wood. Her chest ached, but for the first time in years the ache was bearable. She had heard her mother's voice one last time, not twisted by darkness but filled with love. And that was enough. Alina turned away, walking down the overgrown path, the weight of the past finally loosening its grip. The lullaby still echoed faintly in her mind, but now it was no longer a haunting. It was a goodbye. A promise kept.